You had to pick like one thing that you're good at, like what's the most important thing? It seems to me to be wrestling, because the wrestlers can just, if you get a real high level wrestler, they just dictate what happens.
Why wrestling is the ultimate cheat code in MMA. Every fighter needs an edge, a secret weapon that sets them apart. In mixed martial arts, there's one skill so powerful, so fundamental, it can transform any fighter into an unstoppable force. Today, we're going into why wrestling is the ultimate cheat code in MMA, how its raw power, ironclad control, and relentless work ethic give wrestlers a decisive advantage over anyone who dares to stand across from them. Imagine stepping into the cage full of confidence, knowing your opponent's best weapon striking, jiu-jitsu, or karate, means nothing once you lock onto their body and drive them to the mat. That's the reality for anyone who masters wrestling, origins of the world's first combat sport. Wrestling's roots stretch back to the ancient Olympics over 2,000 years ago, when athletes competed without gloves, pads, or restrictions. They stood naked in the sand, hands locked, testing sheer strength and willpower. Unlike bloodthirsty gladiators, wrestling demanded pure athleticism, takings down, pinning and controlling without the brutality of blades. As civilization evolved, flashy sports like boxing and martial arts drew crowds, but wrestling never lost its essence, the ability to control another human being with nothing but muscle, technique, and heart. The foundations of MMA domination. In modern MMA, every fighter trains striking, grappling, and submissions. Yet wrestling remains the bedrock. Why? Because the moment a wrestler closes distance, they dictate the fight. They choose whether it's on the feet or the ground. They decide pace, positioning, and pressure. Bruce Buffer once said, "Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face." But wrestlers almost never get caught clean. Their sprawling and clinch defense shut down big punches. And if a punch does land, they grab on, drive forward, and turn the tide. Legends like Georges St-Pierre and Daniel Cormier epitomize wrestling's supremacy. GSP drained elite strikers with takedowns, then finished with precision. DC, an Olympic wrestler, dominated heavier opponents through superior grappling, carving out championship legacies. The modern example, we see wrestling's impact in every weight class today. Khabib Nurmagomedov built an undefeated career by dragging the best strikers, McGregor, Poirier, Barboza, into his smothering control. His pressure wrestling made him legendary. Islam Makhachev carried that torch. His top control and grinding pressure so relentless that fighters tapped without an actual choke, their bodies simply refusing to breathe. Merab Dvalishvili, the machine, turned wrestling into a spectacle of pace and conditioning. His opponents dread the moment the rhythm breaks, when he locks onto a leg and drags them into deep waters. Even rise and shiner Ilia Topuria leverages wrestling like a vice, picking apart high-level strikers and ground specialists alike. For all their striking flair, these champions prove one thing: wrestling is the cheat code. Physicality and endurance. Why are wrestlers often the most muscular, the most durable athletes in the gym? Because wrestling training taxes every muscle group. Unlike striking sports, which emphasize arms and shoulders, or jiu-jitsu, focused on timing and leverage, wrestling demands full body power, legs to sprawl, core to drive hips, arms to control the clinch. Day after day on the mat, wrestlers build lungs and hearts capable of enduring 5 brutal rounds. Their conditioning isn't about being tired only when the bell rings. It's about staying at peak aggression when every other fighter has gasped for air, technique, and control. Physicality only goes so far. Wrestling's real power lies in technique. A high-level wrestler doesn't just wrestle harder, they wrestle smarter. They know how to chain takedowns, shift weight, and deny escapes. Take the story of a modern heavyweight prodigy, a 6'2", 300-pound wrestler who lifts opponents like toddlers. His brutal suplexes and pinning combos leave hulking strikers helpless. Even Mike Tyson, the most feared boxer ever, would falter against that kind of grip and leverage, or consider Islam's neck crank on Charles Oliveira. Even as a jiu-jitsu master, Oliveira had no escape when Islam applied knee pressure and twisted positioning until his jaw literally cracked, forcing a tap that stunned the crowd. Strategy. Wrestling isn't just an offensive tool, it's the ultimate counter to any martial art. A boxer may crack hands and feet crisply, but a sudden takedown turns their punches into lifeless blows. Jiu-jitsu specialists thrive on the ground, but wrestlers dictate how and where that ground battle begins. They choose entry, control posture, and avoid submissions with pressure and pinning. Strikers with zero wrestling background stumble. They waste energy defending takedowns, gas out, and face a submersion in top control that feels like drowning. Mental toughness. Wrestling builds more than muscles. It forges mental warriors. Every match pushes athletes to the brink. In practice, returning from near KO slams to sprint right back into the fray. That same mindset transfers to MMA. Wrestlers in the cage never panic. They absorb shots, carry fatigue like an old coat, and maintain focus through every grind. When you see a wrestler shrug off big strikes, press forward, and land takedowns at will, you witness hours of sunk cost in the gym. Cold mats, wet grips, endless drills, debunking the myth. Some say you can teach striking to a wrestler faster than you teach wrestling to a striker. History proves it. Conor McGregor's precision caused momentary trouble for wrestlers, but he never survived extended clinch work. Barboza's kicks landed crisply, yet Khabib took him down at will. When Conor faced Khabib, his head movement and angles were world-class, but on the cage fence, he looked powerless. Wrestling takes years to master. Its instincts develop from childhood mats to Olympic trials. A boxer may learn a jab cross brute over months, but learning to sprawl, set up level changes, and chain double legs under fire is a lifetime's journey. The cheat code exposed. Case study 1. Georges St-Pierre versus BJPenn.GSP never struck fear in Penn's chin. He struck fear by dragging a former champ into an inescapable grappling maze. Case study 2. Daniel Cormier versus Anthony Johnson.DC faced the most feared knockout artist in history, Johnson. But Cormier's wrestling made Rumble a human punching bag, turning the bout into a front row seat of a wrestling clinic.